Hello, everyone. This is the chapter 12 overview. It's going to be relatively brief compared to some of the other overviews that I've done. Chapter 12 is focused on families and relationships. So let's get started. I'm going to really try to focus on some of the key concepts that I want to make sure that you understand. So I'm going to get first to, what do we mean by family? And just this a bit. Okay, so what do we mean by family? Well, for sociologists, we have a very broad um, idea of what family means and what it constitutes, which is different from what the U.S. Census Bureau, the government agency, it's different from how they define family. For the U.S. Census Bureau, and remember that's something that we're asked to do every 10 years, they define family as two or more people who are related by blood, by marriage, or by adoption, and then live in the same household. So if we think about how many families are in the United States, the number will be different if we're using the Census Bureau's number versus if we're using the definition that sociologists use, which is, for us, family is a social group. And the members might be related legally, that is by marriage, or biologically, that is by blood, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's terms. Or it could be what is becoming increasingly common, but has been around for a long time in many families of color or in ethnic communities. Family is often also inclusive of people who are not related to us by blood or marriage or adoption, but we have significant emotional ties to these individuals. So they might not really be our tias and tios or aunts and uncles, but we think of them that way, and we might even call them those names: aunt, tia, uncle, tio, or some other type of term of endearment. And so we include these people as our families. And so for sociologists, they are part of the family. It doesn't matter that it isn't legal, or it's not by adoption, or it's not by blood, but they're an integral part of the family. So we include them. Let me move this up a bit here. Okay, and the extended family is typically what the ethnic communities and some religious communities consider to be family, whereas in the U.S. Census Bureau's terms, it's usually more thinking of the nuclear family, people that are in a family headed by heterosexual parents, and so those children are either adopted or they're the issue in legal terms of those two parents. So let's take a look at the perspectives. Okay, so first, structural functionalism. Structural functionalist theorists, remember, they're always focused on if something exists, it exists for a reason. So if we think about families and why families, the institution, because families are a social institution. Why do we even have the concept of families within societies, almost all societies known to humans? Well, because from a functionalist theorist perspective, families serve some very important needs, not only societal needs, but individual needs as well. So for structural functionalist theorists, they think about families as being one of those basic institutions, like education is another basic institution. And these basic institutions, such as education and religion and families, they help society to function smoothly. And so for structural functionalist theorists, they think of families as providing some, not only, of course, the care and the nurture, which enable us to, be able to go out into the world and live on our own, but also they socialize us. They teach us what society expects of us. And of course, we learn language in families. We learn how to dress ourselves and feed ourselves. We learn perhaps morality from at least to some degree, morality from our parents. And so we we get, in addition to that love and care and nurture, we get these other things that enable us to then go out into the world and to contribute to society. Now you see that it says sexual control there. That's referring to the idea that in most societies, not all, but in most societies, when the institution of family is considered to be one in which two people are monogamous. There are exceptions in some Muslim nation states. Males are legally allowed to have up to 4 wives if they can support them equally. But for most societies, it's about monogamy, which means then that you're controlling sexual function because people aren't just out there willy-nilly having sex with whomever, and all these kids are born out of wedlock, and nobody's going to take responsibility for them. So from a structural functionalist theory, lots of good things are happening in families. Conflict theorists, though, remember that conflict theorists, they're much more critical. And so for conflict theorists, when they look at families, they look at the fact that, often in families, there is, depending upon the family, there is a struggle over resources. And one of those resources, of course, is vying for the love and attention of your parents. And so if there are many children in the family, there's more competition for that love and affection. Also, parents have to invest a lot of time and energy and patience and money into not only creating their families but rearing their families, so that the children will be functioning, contributing members of society. Which also means then the parents don't have as much time for themselves, at least if they want to be good parents. And of course, that means, the more children you have, the less disposable income you have, again, depending upon the income of the family. And of course, families are supposed to be places where we feel safe and loved, but conflict theorists point out that there are problems that can occur in families, and listed here are some of the more common ones. Now, the first couple are, not too bad, but they do affect children. Sibling rivalry, when we compete with a sibling, and parents wittingly or unwittingly egg on this competition by comparing one child to the other child. Hey, well, so-and-so got an A, and how come you got a B? Or, so-and-so is really good in math or sports or whatever, and what about you? And so that sibling rivalry may sometimes be unwittingly or wittingly. Parents may do it intentionally. Create the sibling rivalry where we're competing against our siblings, which then means we begin to have some degree of animosity toward them, that we don't like them very much because we're always competing with them, we're always being compared to them. Favoritism, everyone knows this one. You ask any parent, which of your children do you love the most, or which is your favorite child, and just about every parent, except those that are brutally honest, will say, well, I love all my children the same. I love all my children equally, which we all know is a bunch of BS. If you are not an only child and you have at least one sibling, you know that often one parent has one child as a favorite, the other parent may have the same child as a favorite or a different child as a favorite. But the kid who's the favorite knows, and the kids who are not the favorite, they know that too. Okay, and again, it can create some conflict within families. Intimate partner violence, child abuse, addiction issues within families, these can all create problems, not just for the person or persons involved, but for other members of the family as well. So, and that's covered a little bit further down. And then symbolic interactionist theorists. Remember that symbolic interactionist theorists are very focused on group dynamics, how we live in the groups that we're part of. And so family, of course, is a group, and at least one of the many groups we may belong to. And so for symbolic interactionist theorists, they're really focused on how families create those lasting emotional bonds among members. But also, they focus on how some of these bonds are created socially rather than naturally existing. Here's what is meant by that. Some of us, we truly dearly love our families. We do. They're the people we're closest to. They're the people we're the most comfortable around. All that good stuff. We received a lot of love and care and attention, etc., from our family members. However, I've met far more people, and I'm one of those individuals, for whom family was not all that wonderful. And so I am related to the people that I'm related to the people in the family into which I was born, but I don't have any closeness to them. I don't have any affinity for them. I don't have an emotional bond to them. In fact, I consider people who are not biologically related to me or who are not related to me by marriage or adoption, I consider those people to be my real family. In fact, as a kid, it's going to sound silly, but as a kid, I used to hope that the nurses or the doctors, whomever at the hospital the day that my parents took me home, that they made a mistake and that they gave me to the wrong family, and I should have really been in a different family, because I could not believe that these people belonged to me or that I belonged to them. And also, families create meanings attached to family traditions or just simple family rituals. I mean, something as simple as, do people eat breakfast together in the morning, or do people eat dinner together? Or when they do eat together, do they all put their phones away, or are they all staring at their phones? There's meanings that are created or attached to the way we do things in our family, as well as the family traditions, the holidays, the way we celebrate holidays, what are considered to be must-have foods at celebrations, whether those are birthdays or anniversaries or holidays. All families, well, not all, most families tend to create some sort of rituals and traditions around their interactions. And so for symbolic interactionists, they're really interested in that. Another thing to consider is that for symbolic interactionists, they're also very interested in how we interact within the family. So do mothers interact differently with their daughters than they do with their sons? And do fathers interact one way with their daughters but another way with their sons? And what about siblings? Do sisters interact in one way, but that female maybe interacts differently with her brothers, and vice versa? So all of that intricacy in terms of how we interact with one another is fascinating to symbolic interactionist theorists. And then feminist and queer theories are much newer theories. For feminist theorists, they are focused on how gender and gender roles shape many families, and that because most of what we learn about how to live within a family is passed on to us from our family, we tend to create those families in the same way that we grew up. Unless, we make a concerted effort not to do that. Queer theorists, on the other hand, are very focused on how the traditional ideas of heterosexual parents heading families has still a huge impact on the way that many people view a same-sex couple who adopts children or has children through surrogacy, etc. And that some people may judge those families because they are different in a negative way. For feminist theorists, they view the fact that more men today stay home and care for the children in the home than 40 or 50 years ago. It's still not viewed very positively by some ethnic cultures, particularly more traditional Latinx cultures, say, or more traditional Asian cultures. But more and more people are recognizing that people should be able to have the kind of relationship they want and to create the family that is comfortable and meaningful for them. Not all, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. All right, so those are just some terms here. Um, I just want to make sure I get to this idea. This is another functionalist theorist theory idea, and it again comes from Talcott Parsons, a functionalist theorist, sociologist. Instrumental tasks versus expressive tasks. For Talcott Parsons, instrumental tasks are things that men are better at. They're things that you have to do in order to maintain the family. So things like going out to work, taking out the garbage, cutting the grass, fixing things around the house. I don't know about the washing dishes part, but the things that have to get done around the house or for the family, that men are better at those things. Expressive tasks are things that, according to Talcott Parsons, are things that women are better at. So, you know, the care and the affection and the showing of love, that kind of thing that is supportive of the family in a way that is different from the instrumental tasks. Second shift goes under conflict theory. Second shift is a term that was created by Arlie Hochschild, a sociologist who did a study in the early 1980s and has subsequently replicated the study and found that despite the advances that we've made in the United States in terms of couples who are parenting a family, that women still do somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80% of the domestic responsibilities, that is the tasks and responsibilities in the home, and men are only doing somewhere between 20 and 30%, just depends on the couple. Which means, of course, then that women who do work outside the home are doing what Hochschild called the second shift, meaning that these women go out, they work their first shift out in the work world, and then they come home and they begin their second shift. Right? They start dinner, make sure the kids are doing their homework, maybe throw a load of laundry into the washer, and continue cooking, serve the dinner, clean up the kitchen, throw those clothes in the dryer, check to make sure the kids' homework is finished, make sure they all have baths and brush their teeth, read them a bedtime story, then go fold that load of clothes, and then maybe around 8:39, perhaps after even making some lunches or preparing things for the morning or getting the kids' clothes ready for the next morning, especially younger kids, maybe 8:39, maybe even later, she is able to plop down on the couch next to her partner. One good thing, I think, is that same-sex couples tend to have a more egalitarian division of labor, is what she has found. So maybe there is something to be learned from same-sex couples. All right. Trouble in families, I mentioned before, intimate partner violence, which is the more current term. I'll let you read about that. There's a lot of good information in the text, as well as, so there's this. I think that's about all that I wanted to get to. Yep, that's it. Okay, so that's again a briefer video than I've been making, but it's a shorter chapter, so excuse me, I think that's sufficient. I'll see you again for chapter 13 overview. Bye.